Yes, let's continue folks with the topic of polishing. Currently, the weather situation outside is such that you really have no desire to wash. Right now, there is a storm and heavy rain. What does a car care enthusiast do in this situation? Exactly, they polish. And today, we are going to polish the A-pillar together. I'll share some tips and tricks with you. What should you pay attention to? What machines might you need? Which pads are suitable? Pad size and so on. How do we proceed? First, do we go for heavy card finish or do we do some sort of in-between? Let's take a look. There are already 1 or 2 construction sites and today it's the A-pillar. Let's get started. Ah yes, the good old A-pillar. This is actually an area that I personally enjoy polishing very much. There are few vehicles where the design is so unfavorable that you can polish them really poorly. Sometimes there are A-pillars that have a double bend in them, like this and sometimes even a third bend. This area is very, very nice to work on because it is simply a beautiful convex area. This means it has a curve here. Concave would be like your rims, which are curved inward, while convex is practically a kind of bump. And here, the shape actually allows for good work. We have a couple of spots, 2 or 3, where it gets a bit critical. Once here at the front tip, you have to be a bit careful, so make sure to tape it off nicely. In this vehicle, we have the special case that this target strip is positioned directly over it. It's simply part of the design. I think the moisture is supposed to run down here and then continue downwards. So, we definitely need to mask this off. I also believe that this is not the same paint job. We can see that here as well. We have paint that is, of course, completely torn. We already know the 2001 model with this car. And we have a high gloss black pillar that has also suffered greatly over the many years. Take a look at this. We're doing the whole thing 50-50 again so that we have a nice before and after difference. And now we come to the third difficult area, which is up here, the roof. Don't look at it yet. That's still another project. We have the area here and there is a very narrow spot. So here, you would need to tape both sides at the end and then work by hand in this area. Alternatively, you could use a polishing pad with a 1 cm plate. There is another specific area. We won't cover that in this video 2001, so you need a very small pad or you can work on it by hand here. We are talking about the entire A-pillar and the target strip here. Let's go along with it, shall we? Because this is really bad. Let's get started. What equipment do we have or what do we need? We'll take a look at that now. So, you see, I brought my car from the last video again because it has everything we need. And you can also see here the different options. I like to hang the Evo Mini here in these narrow areas. Over here is my cloth tone, which I still need to wash. So I still have a lot planned for you regarding washing microfiber. Then we have these 2 storage spots here. I really like using them when I take off the ER support plate and then work with the small one. If I still have this on, I like to place it here because it can't fall down. This actually fits really well, but it can also be used for other things, and definitely the larger machines that we don't need today, along with the corresponding polishes. Here is a cut polish, and here for the really tough cases, and we will use these today, specifically the SONAX UltimateCut 6.3, and then just a finishing polish. And I think this should work well in a 2-step process again. I also have a bit of ADBL polish with me, and I'm currently mixing a little, so you always have a nice comparison between the polishes, and I can pass on the feedback to you. Today, we won't be using any separation. I'll just stop here roughly in the middle, so that we still have a nice difference. But we'll skip the tape for now. I am using a very nice cut pad again because we definitely need good material removal, given the amount of scratches. Put a little polish on the pad. This is one that I just used in the previous video. That means we still have a bit of residue in it. Let's bring the car a bit closer and then take this position for the film. I think you'll see it best from here. I always like to mark my area like this. Look at how it handles. You can reach everywhere easily. If the mirror is in the way, maybe fold it in. It depends on how it is with your vehicle. It's really quite different. Not everyone drives a BMW here. That is many years old. And that's why it varies a bit for each person. So, let's get started. I will try to summarize this for you in a short and compact way. First, as always, distribute the polish at a low speed, and then you'll notice when no more polish is splattering out of the pad or anything like that. This also depends on the pad and the polish. Then you can definitely increase the speed relatively quickly. You really want to achieve some performance on the surface in the shortest time possible. I'm a big fan. I always like to use the maximum setting here and just adjust it through the movement speed. You can also see here that it is relatively slow and does not apply significant pressure to the surface. But the whole process should really transfer some friction to the surface. Only then will you achieve a good result in a very short time. It is also important to keep the machine nice and straight, not to angle it in any way. You have only a small pad area, and it tends to tilt very strongly and quickly, which can lead to misalignment. If you notice that the pad is no longer spinning properly and seems to be visually stuck, then you have either misaligned the machine, or you are not yet on a high enough setting for the speed and stroke to keep everything in motion. And that's why you should always pay attention. And once you get the hang of it a bit, really move back and forth evenly. I don't go from top to bottom, as you can see. on the small surface, but always along the path and then nicely follow this even surface. And then, if the polish and pad are suitable, the results should actually be visible in no time. In this case, I am very, very confident about it. We'll take a look at that right after this. Now let's take a look at what this first pass has already achieved. And it's best to always use light when polishing, especially with black or in general, because this way you can see that everything looks nice and shiny at first. Everything is great. And now I need to come over to you a bit, because otherwise I can't see if it reflects nicely on your side. So here we have the area that we haven't polished yet. And up here it already looks significantly better. We still have a very slight haze. Of course, the polish also rubs quite strongly. It should, as we want to remove the scratches, but we still have the same haze, and we will now remove that with the finish polish. But you saw how quickly and relaxed it actually worked. So just a quick finish pass again. Yes, and the same goes here with the finish variant. Here too, finish pad, finish polish. Use what you like best. You can always find my favorites under the videos, as well as the products I always use with you send in the videos. And I'm trying to mix it a bit for you as well. So here, in this case, it's very nice and even. Level 5 is already completely sufficient. It's also relatively high in terms of RPM. But you can see the movement speed of the machine is now significantly higher than during the cut. This means we no longer want to remove any scratches, but just take off a light polishing haze. The pressure on the machine is also not as high now. It's hard to show that in the video. That's why I'm telling you this, to give you the tips. So go over it evenly. You can also see that the speed of the movement is significantly higher. Just quickly remove the small gray haze residues as well. Always pay attention if you see that a piece of tape is starting to come apart. It has held up really well so far and nothing has happened. But if that's the case for you, maybe you have some tape, or perhaps you really only have painter's tape or something on hand. I wouldn't recommend it to you. Absolutely not. Get yourself some decent tape. Everything is linked below. But if you notice with your tape that you've polished heavily on the edge and it's somehow worn down, then remove it beforehand and don't get the tape residue or adhesive residue on the surface. Otherwise, you'll be smearing it around and it will accumulate in the cloth. You'll be applying it in streaks the whole time. This is all pointless. So remove the broken tape beforehand when it gets damaged. But here, this is great, really. So I'm going to take a look from my side first, because I want to remove the residues from the top here. So we don't have a complete 50-50 separation here, like a very sharp one, but rather a slightly flowing transition. But that looks good. There is still a really deep scratch in here that I definitely want to work on later. But let's take a look at it from the front, because that makes it easier to see. Alright. So here we have the area that we haven't polished yet. And now let's go a bit higher, and then we can see here this looks significantly better than down here. Very, very clearly visible. I need to track it closely here so that it is also clearly visible to you. Yes, that looks good. And somewhere here is another long one. It might be recognizable here now. I definitely want to work on that again later. But I believe there is already a really, really significant difference. Here. Let's get a little closer. Now, yes. So if you notice there is still a small scratch, or maybe the shine isn't quite full yet, just go over it again for a second round. But I think this is just for a quick job. It has turned out very, very nice. We will now polish this trim strip here at the front. First, I will go over it with finish, because the structure of this plastic is significantly softer. This means that you can often achieve a lot with finish polish and a finish pad. I want to test this again. If you have deep scratches that are really pressed in, and you can catch your fingernail on them, you won't be able to get them out like that. These plastic trim strips are relatively soft in material and also soft in the coating. So you might not even need to work with harsh products. And since we just worked with the finish pad and finish polish, let's simply take the combo. Now, and on the high gloss black strip, you can already see that the pad size doesn't fit optimally. So here, really pay attention to stay centered on the trim strip and don't slip towards the A-pillar or come into contact with the window. Nothing major will happen for now, but you definitely don't want to worsen your results, especially on the A-pillar, or potentially damage the machine's casing. So always keep in mind to make it nice and even. And then let's take a look at what the finish pad has achieved. And if we go over here now, it's obviously totally overexposed. I need to step back a bit, otherwise it's just way too bright because it's reflecting so much. You can see here you get this entire baked on haze, cleaner, residues. You can actually get all of this off very, very well. If you want to remove even more scratches, just go over it again with a sharper polish. But you can already see what the finish polish has achieved on this soft surface. So here it is again for you at double speed, just to keep it a bit more compact. Now I'm going over it again for you to show the difference it makes. Once more, I'm using the cut pad over this high gloss trim strip, and here, really try to keep it as steady as possible. I also find it acceptable that sometimes it slips a little for a brief moment, but you just have to correct it, and I leave it in because it's simply human. So just make sure to concentrate well, stay centered, and then afterwards, of course, we need to go over it again with the finish pad and the corresponding finish polish. I'll do that next. Of course, I also polished in between. Naturally. And to keep it simple and compact for you, we'll go over the topic of finish again afterwards, and then we'll take a look at the 3 differences between unpolished, just finish, and cut and finish on this high gloss trim strip. So, let's take another look. Here we have illuminated it nicely again, so here are the complete spots. Here we have worked with finish polish. You can see that there is still a strong shine around the lamp, but there is definitely a noticeable color difference. And here, under this special light, it is extremely visible, but outside, there is a stark difference in normal daylight. Now let's go up a bit higher, and you can see that the light is definitely clearer and also smaller, no longer smeared. Here is this extremely deep scratch. You won't be able to get that out. But in any case, the result here is very nice and clear. And now it's a bit milky again, because the cut stage was not included here. Here we have only the finish, and here we have the unpolished area. So, you can really do a lot here in a short amount of time. So, the topic of the A-pillar is definitely doable. It clearly depends, as always. What shapes do you have? What equipment do you have? You also need it here in this area for all these narrow parts like the B-pillar, and also for your vehicle if one is present. For me, for example, I don't have it right now, but also for the A-pillar, mirror cap, and fender. You just need a small polishing machine, preferably one that can handle at least 50 millimeters, but maybe even a 30 millimeter support part would be better. However, most of them also have a combination. This means you can easily work on many narrow areas very effectively. And you can also quickly do something like that on a Saturday morning. You don't always have to spend a whole day on the entire car. Especially in the hobby or private sector, you can easily divide it up. It's important to clean the surfaces nicely beforehand, and then you can say, for example, on Saturday morning, I'll take care of the A-pillars and B-pillars, or today I'm focusing on the entire trim strip area. And you can simply explore it step by step. If you have any questions about it, just leave a comment below, or even easier, contact me directly via WhatsApp. Actually, about 80 to 90% of it is done this way because you are directly in a 2-person conversation and can easily send pictures. This is utilized on my channel by almost 80%. There aren't many people active in the comment sections because people simply have direct contact with me, but that's completely fine with me, and I think it's a better service for you as well, and it's all completely free. And if you have any questions, just let me know. Otherwise, you've seen everything important. I don't want to repeat this unnecessarily because you've clearly seen how to mask off. Pay attention to the edges here, watch the corners, maybe touch up these small corners by hand and go over them again with the finish pad, angling it a bit more. That definitely works as well. And here in this specific case, it also involves the high gloss black strip in the exterior area. I've never encountered something like this in any vehicle before. I find the combination of the A-pillar and the trim strip together to be quite special. Because normally you always have a continuous A-pillar without much embellishment, but there are some wild designs out there, so Yusen is always available for questions. If you have anything, just let me know. Otherwise, you've seen the equipment and you can see what you need. Until next time, until the next part, and maybe the mirror cap or the door. We will take the whole vehicle apart thematically in this regard. Until the next video, bye guys.